start the recording so that any of the questions that you guys ask, obviously I'll put the video up so that other students are able to access those as well. And yeah, there will be, I'm probably going to do maybe another video just rerunning through the template for those that maybe aren't sure of it to put up today. Yeah, so fire away. Who's first?
I'll go first. It's quite a brief one, I think. Calculating the percentages.
Yes.
Obviously, I followed the instructions at the bottom of the calculate the percentage form.
Yes.
And it comes up with I've got what have I got? Two part. And the rest of them are full, and I kept with the original 9, so I've got 1 non-compliance, so I just worked it out of 8, which is exactly the same as the template shows you to work out the so I got 75% with the full compliance or full what do we call it? Full, compliance, and I got 25% with the part. Well, obviously you don't add them together because that's 100%. But how do you get? Does that mean I get a 75% overall compliance, and you ignore the part?
Yeah. Yes.
The part doesn't give any contribution.
No. No. So so remember. And just thinking and listening to you talking about the numbers there, remember as well, if you're doing that mechanical cleaning audit, that you should have potentially more check marks there. So each carriage that you viewed,
I'm doing should the gap.
Have. Oh, are you? Okay. Yeah. Yep. So then, that's fine. So you're working from. Obviously then the data in your mechanical cleaning log, is that right?
I am, but I noticed that this on the templates for the gap, it says 80% audited compliance requested as a pass. So for a start, it would fail that, even though I had no fails.
Yeah. Yes. Correct.
But that's acceptable. You would expect.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah. And that, I mean, that's something, and it depends on, the numbers obviously depend on how many data points you have. So without wanting to kind of get bogged down too much on the mathematics of it, the more data points you have for collection, the less those kind of 1 or 2 partially attained aspects of compliance will impact there. So I mean.
With the high level, I thought there would be only. I would have expected there would be only one tick in each of the boxes, because you're looking at the high level. So you're looking whether it passed or failed in each specific area. So I didn't put any more than 1 tick. So essentially, I've only got 9 results.
Yep, and that's absolutely fine.
Okay.
Some people have chosen to go a different route and kind of break it down a little bit more when they've done that. So take a little bit more data. One of my girls last semester, oh my goodness, she sent me, I think it was 7 or 8 pages of it. Like, she had to have a spreadsheet to collate all of her data, because I think she went entry by entry.
Oh yeah.
Or broke it down into weeks or time periods, so that then obviously there was more data, and that's something that's so if you're on that side of it, you can do it either way, because even if you have less data points, you'll still have a reasonable amount to talk about, because in your corridor in the report, that then gives you the ability to break it down and kind of detail what the aspects of partial compliance were. And then, and then link that back to, okay, well, what are the recommendations out of this for the, for the report going forward? So yeah, that's like, just because you didn't meet 80%, that's like, don't be too stressed about that. We're not. It's it's more the importance of that is about framing up the corridor that comes later in your report to be valuable to the management and your service, so that then you can then look at the processes that impact, the bits that have been highlighted there, and then kind of work your recommendations around that, about how that could be kind of ironed out, so that next time the same audit was carried out, that obviously a better result would be gained. So so in a roundabout kind of way, we got to answering the question. So the numbers are absolutely fine, and that they're there basically to and you want to have enough detail on the audit and the comments itself, so that somebody would be able to pick up your audit and understand what your observations were.
Oh, okay.
So think, you might have in the comments to those partially attained criteria in your audit that, the details of what you found in the logbook. So, I had one student talking about, they were talking about their testing devices, and 3 days out of the last month they weren't utilised in the first load of the day through the mechanical washers. So that was obviously an area for them of partial compliance. But in that comment section is just, add details in terms of observation that then kind of, because essentially you've got two documents that they stand alone, but obviously you'd use them together. So you should be able to read the audit and understand what it is that you've observed. So somebody could pick that up and go, great, I've read through what you've written there, understand what you're doing, because you've filled in all the parts of that audit template. You can see the criteria that's been used. You have the comment section for your observation, so somebody can see exactly what it is that you picked up.
Yep.
And then obviously, like I said, the report's your chance to kind of develop that corridor a little bit, link it back to standards, compliance, non-compliance, and then find out a way forward with your recommendations.
So you'd expect the almost the report to sort of go over the same things as the audit again, because I sort of tried to keep the audit simple, but tried to put that stuff on the report. So that's the wrong way about it.
No. So you should absolutely, like this. If there's a little bit of crossover between the information that's in the report and the audit itself, that's fine. Obviously, you don't have a chance to go into a huge amount of detail in the audit template itself. You could continue typing in that little box and allow it to go down pages and pages, but all we're after is what your observation was, so that somebody could look at that and go, this is what's been done and what's been seen, and then read your report and understand then how it links, to the standard, and how then you think, in terms of your recommendations, how the service improves that, so that next time those areas of partial compliance are not an issue. So so a little bit of crossover is fine. Whatever way you set it up, really, as long as think about each one as a standalone document, so I could pick up either one and understand exactly what's going on. And I think the templates kind of make that easy, in the sense that you've got everything there, and you could pick up one or the other and know exactly what the document is.
Okay.
Cool. So any other thoughts or questions here, Denise, on either the audit or the report?
The one thing that frustrates me a little bit is I can never find, for instance, ISO standards. I can't find them in our library, and I can't find them online because you have to purchase them. So where I can find an ISO standard that's directly related to cleaning and disinfection processes, so for instance, I can't actually read it to pick out what bits cross over, because I can't. Well, I haven't got $185 for each one. But I thought they were in our library, but they don't appear to be either.
Okay. And obviously every service is different. And I don't know as much about kind of how that works, and I imagine it would be the same for a service. Like if you were to have purchased or printed every single ISO standard that relates to processes within the within your sterilising departments, or potentially across the whole operation of the hospital.
Actually, I've never thought to check
I-
at work.
I
I've only checked at home. They might have them.
Yeah. So, what I'd say is do what you can with the resources that you've got. Yeah. Our focus for this paper is linking the findings of your audit back to the 3 standards that we're mostly concerned with here. So, yeah, if you can link that, if you can get your hands on some of that information, great. If you can't, don't be too worried about it. And just kind of, there's enough within the standards themselves that you should be able to give some good corridor around what the findings mean, how they link to the standards and compliance and non-compliance, and then the way forward as well.
Okay, it wouldn't be acceptable to just mention that there are standards so that you can get it in as an APA reference, but not actually fully understand it.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a very good question, and you need to be a little bit careful about that. So, absolutely, in terms of practice and academic practice, you need to be a little bit careful. So, if I was to tell you that every student ever fully knows and understands the APA references and citations that they're using in their work and they've read the whole documents, I think we all know that's probably not 100% true, in the sense that there's some students that will throw in references where they don't fully understand the literature. So for me, I would say, as long as you know enough about the ISO standard to know how to link it to your work, if you've got enough information there, as long as you've got something, if you're like for an academic article that's in a journal, if you've been able to read kind of, an abstract and a summary of the results, but you haven't read the whole thing, it's probably maybe just enough to put it in there. Okay. And as you kind of move through the levels of kind of academic writing, that would probably get less and less acceptable. Yeah. At level 4, like, I'm not going to jump all over you for going, you didn't have that because you told me you didn't have it and you've put it in your work. I'm not going to worry about that. If it's in there and you've referenced it accurately and used APA format to do so, then that's fine. Yeah. So
I'll check the work and see if I've got more information.
Yeah, and if you have or you haven't, and in this context, don't be too worried about it, because, like I said again, you've probably got enough information in the standard itself, and relating that to your audit to talk about those areas of partial compliance that you've picked up in your audit. So, yeah. So when I tell my on-campus students and my kind of undergrads, level 6 and 7 students that are kind of working towards degrees, I would say to them that they need to understand any of the resources that they put in their work, so that I should be able to kind of pick up their reference list and have a corridor with them about what that literature actually is, so that they're not putting it in there tokenistically to go, I need some more references, so I'm just going to grab that because there was one sentence in the abstract that kind of lined up with what I said. I want them to have an understanding of what the piece of literature actually is. So for you, I'd say put the ISO standards in there as an APA reference. You probably know enough about them to be able to inform me about, or inform your reader about exactly how they relate to what you're doing. But focus should be, and again, if you just check over the marking criteria as well, so the focus of the whole paper, but especially this audit and the report that relates to it, is to link it back to those 3 major standards that kind of overarch any of those other supporting documents as well. So hopefully somewhere in there, I feel like a bit of a politician sometimes when I talk. I tend to go around about and we kind of get to something that vaguely resembles an answer. So if I haven't answered your question, just go, hey, Craig, not quite there. Yeah. Is that cool?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, what about you, Janine? What are your thoughts? What are your...
Well, if I've got 6 carriages,
Yes.
do I do 6 audit reports? Or
No.
audits and then 1 report at the end?
No. No, so just use the template and have, so you have 6 general instrument carriages and 6 minimally invasive carriages. All you need to do, so you know how in the template, you know, the first 5 criteria for your general instrument carriages, you should have 3 kind of check marks in each of those criteria. So each carriage, did it comply? Did it partially comply? Did it fully comply?
Right.
The same for the minimally invasive ones. So I think the criteria 6 through to 10 on that template.
Yep.
Any others that you've added that apply to all of the carriages, just make sure that you have 6 check marks there. So
okay, so in each box, if they partially comply, there should be 3 check marks if it's the 3 carriages.
Yep. So each check mark should represent 1 carriage that you've obviously, in your case, you've had a look at the photos and gone, yes, it does, no, it doesn't.
Yep.
Yeah, and just some students have been called out and they've done that bit well, and then they've added 3 or 4 criteria that apply to all carriages, and then but only put 3 check marks in there instead of the 6. So just be aware that, you know, the first 5 there should be 3 because there's 3 general instrument carriages.
And then in the comments, is that where you'd say carriage 2 not achieved because blah blah? Or
Yep, absolutely. So that's the part where, and again, you should be able to pick your audit up as a standalone document and see exactly, so your supervisor would be able to see straight away exactly what you've observed.
Yep.
So, you know, don't write an essay in the comments box. So bullet points fine. So you might, if there's 3 carriages that are partially complied, you might go, right, so just bullet point each one to say why they haven't. And then
so
obviously
don't say carriage 1, carriage 2, carriage 3 in it. It's just
you might want to differentiate, and it's kind of, you know, as long as it's obvious reading the whole thing. So if it isn't clear in your comments, but I can see that there's 3 partially complied carriages and you've got 3 points that you know, that you've highlighted for non-compliance, then I would assume that there's 1 on each carriage. You know, if you've got 3 points there, but you've only highlighted,
be better off put 1, 2, 3 rather than write the whole word carriage 1 or whatever.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, like what I'd say to you is, and it's a really good tool to use when you're doing any academic work, is give your audit once it's done to somebody that knows nothing about it. So I use, like any of the education I'm doing at the moment in the area of education, I always get my wife to proofread my work, because she's a grammar and punctuation Nazi, so she picks up any of my mistakes, which is really awesome. But secondly, if she can pick that up and read it, then I know the clarity in my writing is good. So what I'd say is do what you think is going to make sense and would be clear, and then give it to, say, your partner or your husband or your or you know, somebody at work, and go and have them read it. And if they ask you questions about, oh, what do you mean here, then you might need more explanation.
Okay.
So for me, you know, I don't think, you know, yeah, if it was me, I'd probably write carriage 1, carriage 2, carriage 3 for clarity, so that somebody picks it up and goes, okay, cool, I can see clearly that, you know, there was partial compliance on all of these 3 carriages that were looked at. These are the reasons why for each one. And then it makes it a little bit easier in terms of kind of linking that to the writing in your report as well. So,
no, I mean, I've got all my notes in that, and I just wasn't sure how to put it into this.
Yeah. So as long as when you read it back, it's clear, and that's where it's always good to get somebody that isn't you and doesn't know what you're doing to read it, because then, the thing with the writing, any writing, and academic writing is no different, is that when I read my own writing, or when you read your own writing, you read it with the knowledge and the reading and the understanding that you know what you meant to say, whereas somebody else picks it up and is reading it based on the words that you've got on the paper without that background knowledge. So then, as I said, if somebody else can pick it up and read it and understand what you're saying and doesn't have kind of questions about clarity, then you've done a pretty okay job of it. So that's it's a technique that I use all the time. And it's even better to have someone that doesn't know anything about the subject, because they they'll pick up every little thing that's maybe not clear about what you've written there. Whereas if you give it to somebody at work and they have a bit of knowledge around that, their perspective is going to be slightly different. Yep. And they might know what you mean when you say about when you've written there. So what we want is clarity, and you should have somebody be able to pick it up and read it and understand exactly what you're trying to communicate, what you're trying to articulate. So cool. So are you both feeling pretty comfortable that what have you got, like just a little bit less than a week that you'll be able to
kind of... kind. Just rub it in.
We're not quite down to counting down hours yet, but close to that. Feel comfortable that you're going to get there?
Yep. I'm more comfortable now that I understand it's not today that it was due in, because I thought it was today.
Oh, did you? No.
I hadn't read it properly, and then I thought, it's got to be in by the 4th. And somebody at work said, one of the other girls that's doing it said, no, you got another week. And I thought,
another week. Man, another week. And then
I thought it was Friday.
So you relax for a couple of days, and then you get to kind of Wednesday, Thursday, and go, oh crap, it is next week now. Now I need to do it.
It's Monday, isn't it?
Monday.
Yeah. Monday. Okay.
Generally, our deadlines are always Monday. Exactly. So understanding that most of you guys are working kind of rostered shifts, and 7 days a week, some services potentially 24 hours, and night shifts and all that wonderful stuff.
Yep.
Understand that everybody's going to be working on this at a different time, but I used to last year give my students until kind of midnight on Sunday, but then I'm kind of thinking about it going, well, actually I'm not going to actually read it until 9 o'clock, at least kind of 8 to 9 o'clock the next day, by the time I've downloaded all of the scripts and done all of that when I arrive at work or when I arrive at my home office. So why not give those students that want to sit up through the night to do it until like 8:30 the next morning the chance to do that, or the chance to finish it on Sunday and then put it down and then kind of go back and reread it, or give it a final proof on Monday morning before it gets submitted. So so Monday morning 8:30. And hopefully everybody else, I think would be ambitious to think that all students are comfortable that they're going to get it finished in time, because there's a lot of people with a lot of stuff going on. But at least there's 2 here that are pretty confident, so that's good. I'll take that.
It's easy to put on a persona.
Yes. And obviously understand and appreciate the work that does go into this. So probably a good point to acknowledge that, not only for you two that are here, but for all the students that'll be kind of watching this and maybe stressing a little bit. I do kind of understand and appreciate all of the work that does go into this stuff, and especially if you're not used to academic writing, and trying to, the challenge of trying to juggle that with work and family, and for some of us lockdown as well. So there is a lot going on there.
There's no opportunity left to submit a draft, is there, for looking at...
I'm happy to read something this week. So the thing is, in terms of timing, I need to have time to read it, and then you need to have time to do something with the feedback, right? So what I'd say is I'm quite happy to read anything up until about kind of Wednesday, Thursday. My on campus, just because of the way lockdown's gone and we're in level 2 in the Bay and kind of not fully back to on campus teaching yet, I'm a little bit more flexible this week than I thought I was going to be. So I do have some time to be able to read drafts. So those that want to submit something, let's say before the end of Thursday, I'm happy to read it. I won't go through and kind of fully mark it, but I'll have a read over, and if there's any kind of if there's any areas that I think you might want to put some work in to increase your grade, or just to then I'm absolutely happy to do that. I don't have physically the hours in the day to fully review everyone's and give you an idea of the marks that you might get with the work you've submitted. But if you're in a space where it looks good and you're going to pass, and I might give you some pointers about how you might improve the grade that you're going to get. Okay. For those that aren't up to the mark, I might give them a little bit more directed feedback. Go, hey, it's not quite there. This wouldn't pass.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So, and just make sure as well that you have a check over, and if you haven't already, like once you've finished writing, go back to the marking criteria and kind of judge yourself whether you've covered each of the areas that are set out in there. So you know how it's broken down, and you've got like 5 marks for the introduction, then 20 marks for the audit, and then how's it go? 10 marks for compliance, for identifying the areas of compliance, and so that you feel like you've done all of that.
Yeah.
Because essentially that's the sheet of paper that I'm using to judge your work. So, the more of these assignments that you do, the better all of you will get at being a good judge of your own work and whether you've met the criteria and the marking schedule or whether you haven't. And it's just a matter of then, it's a matter of judgment in terms of how well you've done that. So do you get into the, yes, you've comprehensively done this category, or the, yep, we're kind of sitting in the C category, 50, 60%, you've done an audit, could have given me more detail on the commentary, or could have, so just make sure before you submit either finally or before you submit a draft that you have a look so that you've got an idea. And if you send it through and you've got specific questions about what does it mean, what exactly do you want in the introduction, or, then by all means, when you email me, and directly email me a draft. Don't worry about going through the Moodle page because that gets a bit confusing for some students.
Craig, I've got to go. I've got another meeting that's waiting on me. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
Okay, no worries.
Speak soon. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye. So just make sure, always go back and make sure that you're happy, that you've got each of those marking criteria checked off, and if you've got a specific question about how the marking criteria reads or what we're expecting, just physically ask me the question, is this what you mean by, historical background in the introduction?
Okay.
If there's an area that you're not quite sure that you've met that criteria. So, and when you see the weighting of that, that's only worth 5 marks. The audit itself is worth, the audit process is worth 20 marks.
Mm-hmm.
The quarter around compliance is worth 10. So that gives you clues as to how much work you should put into each of those parts as well. So don't write me a 1,200 word introduction, because probably taking away from marks.
Okay. Yeah. No worries. Okay.
Cool.
All right. I better go because I've got to go to work.
Yeah, very good. Well, be safe, and obviously be careful on the roads because they're probably pretty wet with all the rain and stuff. But any questions, and for not only for you but anybody that's listening, kind of watching the video through the Moodle page, happy to read drafts this week up until about Thursday. So if I get something on Thursday, I'll read it on Thursday, feedback to you at the latest on Friday morning. so that it gives you a chance over, you know, kind of the weekend if you want to make any tweaks to your work to have a crack at it. So,
yeah.
Cool. All right. Nice to catch up, Denise.
Thank you.
And Janine, who's left us. All right. Cool.
Okay.
Okay. Stay
Bye.
safe. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.